discuss advances both in knowledge about and management of climate change in Peru, focused specifically on progress and challenges to adaptation to changes in the mountain cryosphere. Changes in the cryosphere have significant socioeconomic relevance in Peru, which is home to the vast majority of the world's tropical glaciers. These glaciers have provided an essential source of fresh water for mountain and downstream communities, especially during the dry season, when mountain glaciers provide a buffer against drought and ensure reliable water for drinking, agriculture, and energy production. However, because of climate change, these glaciers are rapidly disappearing. In the last 50 years alone, Peru's glaciers have lost about half of their surface area, and the loss of remaining glaciers, which in some cases may disappear entirely in just a few decades, will have impacts that reverberate around the country. Of particular concern are the availability of fresh water and the growing risk of hazards such as glacier lake outburst floods. The need to understand and adapt to climate change in Peru's mountain cryosphere is urgent. And with that in mind, this morning we have a wonderful lineup of speakers who will share insights on the important work that is being done to advance adaptation to climate in Peru, both by government agencies who are advancing the management of climate adaptation and by scientists whose research feeds into decision-making from the local to national levels. They will share the latest advances in research carried out by the Peruvian National Institute for Research on Glaciers and Mountain Ecosystems, or INAIHEM, as well as research being undertaken by international experts. This work is essential to advancing climate adaptation in Peru and also importantly contributes to regional and global efforts to understand, mitigate, and adapt to climate change-induced loss of the mountain cryosphere worldwide. And after these presentations, we will open the floor to questions, both from our live audience and online. And we will conclude with brief virtual closing remarks from the president of INAIHEM. And first, we have the honor of hearing from Milagros Sandoval, who's the Director General of Climate Change and Desertification in Peru's Ministry of Environment. Milagros, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Welcome. I think that Morgan has reflected specifically what we are working nowadays in Peru, and I would like to highlight the importance of collaboration. Collaboration to work on these issues, collaboration that is part of this process, and definitely part of what we want to discuss today. This side event reflects the work that's being done and the collaboration that's being done related to the cryosphere in Peru. As mentioned, the cryosphere is definitely important because it's not only related to just losing glaciers, it's related to the livelihoods of people that depend on the water resources and to the overall process that is part of this important ecosystem. Right now, during the UNFCCC negotiations, and I think that's something that sometimes, even though we're very near, we do not discuss exactly what's being discussed out in the negotiation rooms and what's been discussed here. I think the cryosphere is a clear example of this. Why? Because this includes clearly loss and damage for Peru. These areas, the cryosphere is going to be, unfortunately, we're going to lose it. And probably there is no way to bring it back. And this is going to reflect in the lives of many, many people, especially Andean communities, that definitely need this process. What are we doing in Peru? We're working, as I mentioned, in a collaborative manner. We have to identify much more information. Today we're going to bring in information that we're working right now, but definitely there's a process that we need to continue working and collaborating, not only at the national government, but also at the international community. We also have to bring and reflect and give a spotlight to why these areas are important for the country, but also how different communities are experiencing the impacts of losing this important ecosystem. And I think that's also what now we want to address. I also would like to thank today the participation of 3 of our congressmen, tres congresistas right now in this side event, because they are important to understand what is happening and also how this can be reflected at the national level through our legislative branch, how that we can highlight this process. Muchas gracias, señores congresistas, por acompañarnos hoy día en esta presentación y la importancia de poder conocer el tema de la criofera, la importancia de este ecosistema tan valioso para el Perú. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth in Spanish and English, but muchas gracias a los congresistas Málaga, Taipe y Saavedra que nos están acompañando el día de hoy para poder conocer un poquito más, y también a los colegas peruanos y peruanas que también están acá. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours again.
Thank you so much, Milagros. And our next speaker is Lizzie Kanashiro, who is an adaptation specialist focused on ecosystems based at the General Directorate of Climate Change and Desertification. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you very much. I want to, with this, no? I want to give you some information about how we work about the integral management of climate change in Peru. So, and tell you a little bit about how we're working about Cryosphere in Peru also, no? Next, please. Yeah. Or with this. Oh. Yeah, thank you, sorry. So, no. Yeah. Okay. Can you help me pushing the... You? Thank you. Next one, please. Yeah, sorry. Next one. Next one. So first I'm going to talk to you about how do we work about the integral management of climate change in Peru and its contribution to the sustainable development in our country. Next. So the integral management of climate change in Peru, it's work in 2 different aspects. The first one in institutional terms, and this is under the framework law on climate change and its regulations. And in the other side, we have the actions that we do, and this is represented in our NDCs, no? The nationally determined contributions. These 2 aspects are working in an integral manner from 3 different levels, no? The multi-sectorial level, the multi-level participation, and the multi-stakeholder participation. Talking about the multi-sectorial level, there are 2 big spaces where we work climate change, and the first one is the National Commission on Climate. Have the participation from different kinds of actors in Peru, from the state government, non-government state actors, and also civil society, the academy, indigenous people, women, young. So we're trying to get the participation from different kind of actors from the country. And the other space where we coordinate climate change issues is the high-level Commission of Climate Change, where we have representations from all the most of the ministries of our country, and where we have the proposals to develop new NDCs, or maybe the actualization of our NDCs that we already have, no? So we have 2 spaces to coordinate this. The other aspect where we work the integral management of climate change in Peru is that we have a coordination from the national level with different sectors, with a subnational level also with regions, and also local level, no? Talking about government spaces. And also the multi-stakeholder level. We have a mechanism to include the participation of people that is called the dialoguemos, or it's translated to let's talk, where we call representatives from all different kinds of institutions, from the state, non-state, indigenous people, women, everybody, to receive their recommendations, their points of view, and to try to make conciliated documents. No? For example, our national strategy of climate change, and the different documents like this that are prepared by the state are work on this way, no? With the participation of everybody. Next one, please. So what is the importance of the framework law on climate change? This is important because it strengthens the relation between the national, regional, and local levels, because in this law we have the roles and the functions of all the government sectors. What do they have to do related to NDC, for example, no? And to implement these NDCs. It also talks about that the climate change management needs to include the academia and the research participation as an input to develop the climate change action. And also it includes the NDC monitoring. It establishes that there has to be a national system to do the follow-up of the advancing of our NDCs and to improve our work and maybe get more ambitious on them. And as you can see, involving all the levels from the national, the regional, and the local, there is an integrated management of the climate change in the planning instruments that we have at all levels, no? Since the national strategy of climate change, the regional strategies of climate change, and we also have local plans of climate change, no? And all they are related. And the Ministry of the Environment is the national authority of climate change, no? So we articulate from the ministry the participation of all the actors. Next one, please. So talking about the NDCs, we have 84 adaptation measures in 7 prioritized thematic areas. No? We have agriculture, forest, fishing and aquaculture, health, water, and 2 recent new thematic areas that are tourism and transport that were included in our NDCs, trying to reach more ambitions for the Peruvian Compromise. No? And the objective, the target of our adaptation NDCs is to reduce the level of vulnerability and risk associated with climate change and take advantages of its opportunities also, no? Because not everything it's bad. No? There can be rich opportunities, and we have to try to take advantage of them when they appear. And talking about mitigation, there are 63 mitigation measurements in 5 different greenhouse gases emission sectors. These are the sectors that are more related to the emission of GHG, and it's the LULUF, no? Land use and land use change and forestry, energy, industrial processes, agriculture, and waste. No? These are the sectors related to emissions of the gases, greenhouse gases emissions. No? And all our measures from adaptation and mitigation have transversal approaches. No? We try to develop or implement these measures, but taking in account the gender, intergenerational, and interculturality dimensions of the themes in these NDCs. No? So they are transversal to all our NDCs. Yeah, next one, please. So as you can see, in Peru, the management of climate change is integral because it has an institutional strengthening. From the framework law of climate change, we try to integrate the action between the national, regional, and local level. It's multi-sectoral implementation because it converts the work of different kind of actors from the countries, not only the government actors, also civil society and the academy and everybody else. It's multi-level implementation because we're trying to, that the implementation of NDCs are from the planning of the local, regional, and national level. And we have two big spaces to talk about NDC and how to develop them and strengthen them and get them more ambitious also, no? And in this part, it's important because in here we have the participation of the private actors, no? So to implement NDCs, we need money, and this is the space where we can catch their attention and try to get NDC financing to make more ambitious our compromise about NDCs, no? Next one, please. So talking about Cryosphere, Peru has more than the 70% of the tropical glaciers in the world. And during the research has shown that more than the 50% of our glaciers has been lost. So it's very urgent to work on them. And talking about that, in our NDCs, in the thematic area of water, we have 3 NDCs related to glaciers. No? Next one, please. And these NDCs are trying to help people to be less vulnerable to the loss of water, mainly because in Peru, glaciers are more related to the provision of water. So these are the 3 NDCs that we have in Peru related to glaciers. The first one is implementation of early warning systems for floods, alluviums, and other dangers of glacier origin. This is a measure that is trying to develop management risk against the impacts that from the loss of glaciers can happen. The second one is the implementation of water harvesting actions. This is an NDC very interesting because it takes into account the traditional management that local communities do, and they have been doing this for many years ago, and they are now being used as adaptation measures against water loss. No? And the third one is the implementation of information services for multisectorial planning and management of water resources in bases vulnerable to climate change. And this is important also, no? Because as you have seen in other spaces, to get information and research is very important to design and implement the adaptation measures, no? In an effective way. So this is an NDC that is trying to systematize the information and also to generate more research. And yeah, that's what I want to share with you. And thank you very much. And Morgan, I give you the floor again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lizzie, for sharing with us the multi-scalar, integrative, collaborative, and inclusive approach that Peru is taking to adaptation to climate change. And we'll turn now to a series of scientific presentations, the first of which will come from Dr. Danielle Martinez, who is the Vice Director for Knowledge Management and Capacity Building at INAIHEM, and he will tell us a bit about how scientific knowledge can be used to inform decision making. Thank you, Daniel.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, good. Okay, I will talk a little about the state of the glaciers in Peru and how we relate this with adaptation measures. Okay, now it's okay? Now it's better? Okay, next. Okay, here we see the global distribution of tropical glaciers. As you see, as Lizzie said before, practically more than 97% of glaciers, of tropical glaciers in the world are concentrated in Peru. Okay. Practically more than 99% in South America, and of them, the majority are in Peru. The next one, please. Now we see that the tropical glaciers are divided in different regions, and this region characterized by seasonality. Seasonality is very important in the case of tropical glaciers because in one season they accumulate snow, and in both seasons they lose ice and snow, but only one season they accumulate. And you see here how in different latitudes this dynamics is different. Most glaciers in Peru, as you see, no. Now we will show you the isolines of glacial retreat in several examples in this same Cordillera Blanca. This is the Pastoruri Glacier. that is very famous because of winter sport. Now, in some years, we will have no pastoruri. Then winter sports in Peru will be declining. But as you see very clearly how it has been decreasing its area in the last years. Next one, please. Next one. This is the Yanamarei Glacier. It's a similar process. This is also another glacier of the Cordillera Blanca. Next one, please. Next one. Okay, I think it was too fast. This is a Ushuraju glacier. It's as you see, he has practically lost a great deal of its area too. These are similar examples from the same Cordillera Blanca that show that practically all the glaciers are losing area, particularly in Peru. The other one, please. Next one. Okay, this, as I was saying, this glacial retreat causes the problem of the long-run problem of water scarcity, but it causes also the present problem of the risk of glacial disasters, glacial-related disasters, like avalanches. Please. This is caused by when the glacier begins to melt, some rocks and some ice, very big ice masses become loose. They become unstable. Then, as long as the ice mass is lost, then some of these rocks may fall down. They may fall down and they may form avalanches, but they may also go into the lagoons. And if a big rock goes into a lagoon, then this lagoon forms a big wave, and it's from what is called the Gulf. It is a glacial originated flood. If generally in the way of this water there is a city or some human settlements, because they feed from this water, and then normally this can cause big problems in the people with life losses and so on. The other one, please. The other one. These are an example of all the lagoons and globes that have happened in the Cordillera Blanca. As you see, this is not an exceptional problem. This is a normal problem that happens periodically, and then the only way to know when it can happen is to observe in detail the evolution of these ice masses, to know if there is any instability that might cause this problem. The other one, please, the next one. This is an example of lagoons threatening Huaraz. Huaraz, as you know, is the capital of the department of Ancash. It's an important city in the Andes that has had already before this problem. And now it's